Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Melody Marshall. Looking forward to our conversation today, Melody.
Me too. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So, Melody is a mum. She's an adoptive mum. She's got five kids, one of whom has joined
Hmm.
your family through adoption.
Yep.
And she also runs a family preservation ministry. That's what you call
Hmm.
it, isn't it? That's right. Ministry
Yep.
preservation. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've come up with a slightly different format, listeners. We're gonna look at the challenges around family preservation and a flow towards thriving,
Mhm.
because these are as Melody is going to lay out for us. These are steps along the journey, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, family preservation. First thing is, how did you come up with that? Uh,
Well, so I'm not the one who coined the term, although it is still fairly new enough that if I say it, I often get a response of, I don't know what that is. It is what it sounds like it is, though. We're preserving that original family unit whenever possible, or sometimes we are able to come alongside adoptive families too and help preserve when stress levels are getting really, really high in the home. So it might not be biologically that original family unit, but it's the family that is together. We're going to fight to put supports in their life so that they stay together.
yeah, and so crisis supports. This is all really tricky,
Hmm.
very emotive. It's a very emotive time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is a very emotional time. And not easy. Preservation or prevention are a really hard thing to measure or to know exactly how to step into. And so you have to have a decent understanding of what is leading to a family being in that place where they could potentially get broken apart. And I think adoption and the foster care system both come from a variety of stories. There's lots of things that could lead to a kid either being in the foster care system or adopted. And I would say those are pretty different. So if you're in the foster care system, you probably were, as a child, were experiencing abuse and or neglect. If you are adopted, it could be a whole variety of stories. It could be that your parents are no longer alive, your biological parents. It could be that they made an adoption choice for you because they didn't feel they were in a place where they could care for a child. There are a lot more options. Whereas usually, if a child is in the foster care system, it is because of abuse or neglect. So one of the things we did is we studied what are the key indicators leading towards abuse or neglect taking place. And there are four, according to the National Clearinghouse on Childhood Abuse and Neglect, there's four key leading indicators. They are, well, the first two are really interesting. One is if there are two parents in the home and one overwhelmingly makes the decisions, that's an indicator that abuse or neglect will take place at some point. So it's kind of like a balance of power in the home between those two parents. The second one is the intergenerational transmission of violence. So what parenting style you learned from your parents, you are likely to pass down to your child. So if that was abusive, then you're likely to pass that down. But then the top two are really where we feel like we can have a big say. One is being socially isolated, meaning there's no supportive community around that family. And then when that's partnered with a temporary crisis, those two things lead to this boiling point in the home where a parent might make a choice like um, leaving a 2 or 3 year old at home alone so they can go get some money for food. And so go work for a few hours. And that's obviously seen as neglect. That child's too young to stay home alone. But man, that parent is not necessarily in any way a bad, quote unquote, bad parent. They are just in a time of desperation and at this boiling point as a family. And so those two things, the social isolation and temporary crisis, those are the two we feel most passionately that we could do something about if we help support that family instead of just waiting and see. We'll help you once it boils over. No, what if we helped turn the heat down some? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about a trauma researcher that I interviewed a long time ago. Well, I didn't interview her, I just had a conversation with her. And this was PTSD,
Hmm.
that sort of trauma rather than specifically adoption trauma.
Yeah.
And she said, or anything to do with childhood trauma. She said, well, the difference that makes the difference, it is the support,
Yeah.
right? And well, no, she didn't say the difference that makes the difference is the support. She listed a whole thing, a load of different things, and to me, they all sounded like support. And I
Yeah.
said, those all sound like um, external issues to
Hmm.
do with the amount of support that that person has. So,
Yeah.
and she said, yes. I said, but what about the internal
Hmm.
issue? What, so for want of a better word, um, well, first off, she said, I don't, she said, well, I don't really have a comment about that, which I thought was very
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and so on the back of that, internal resilience has become a kind of like a fascination of of mine is
Yeah.
in terms of uh, what what's the we know clearly that the support is key,
Hmm.
and what else is in terms of resilience or mindset or ability to cope. You know, people talk
Hmm.
about coping strategies and those sorts of things. So, how do you see the kind of the inner the inner dynamic here?
Yeah. Well, I know there's the whole like nature versus nurture argument, and I'm a big believer in a combination of the two. I'm raising 5 kids, so I'm seeing them have similar nurture to each other, certainly different nature, um, as they're turning out to be quite unique individuals. And I'm one of 6 kids as well, so I watched that in my own family growing up. But I think that, well, I think a few things. I think for sure some of it is some of this innate quality that we have in ourselves. Maybe some of it is our faith. If you have a faith journey, if you're a believer in the Lord, but I also think some of it is the way we were cared for it very young that we might not even realize. So, neurologists say that we process information from our right brain to our left brain. And so, if you have had received social cues that you are loved and belong by a face lighting up when it sees you, or receiving warm, affectionate care, you have an intern at a very young age, even. Actually, they show that the first 300 days is the most crucial. I'm sorry, the first 1,000 days, the most crucial for brain development. Um, so you might not remember how much your mom was crazy about you as a 1 or 2 month old baby, or what her face looked like when she first looked at you when you came out of the womb. But your brain is already developing this sense of belonging and worthiness. And so as an adult, even if a whole bunch of things have happened that made you feel like unworthy or unloved, or you have PTSD or trauma of some sort, your brain would still have this innate sense of, I am worthy and loved, and therefore I'm able to be resilient beyond these circumstances because I understand my innate worth. Is that making sense a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I think there is the nature and nurture both, but I think some of it, there might be a little more nature going on than we realize because of those early, even in utero experiences where there's a like the tender, loving care of a parent.
yeah. I've interviewed a neuroanatomist who talks about the um, the inner critic having a specific place in the left brain.
Hmm.
So this lady had a left brain stroke,
Oh.
and so the inner critic, what one of byproducts of that stroke was that the inner critic was gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I think about this kind of area, I think about our uh, I think about the inner critic. Like I can't handle this,
Hmm.
or I'm a bad. What was I thinking of
Yeah.
to adopt? Or who was I to think that I could adopt?
Hmm.
Or I'm a I'm a I'm a crappy parent.
Yeah.
I think about though, and I think so. I think about thoughts and belief
Hmm.
systems
Hmm.
and mindset.
Yeah.
So for me, the key is the see through that,
Hmm.
seeing
Yeah.
the truth, seeing the
Yeah.
truth of who we are. So
Hmm.
you mentioned faith,
Hmm.
and some people. I was talking to a Christian yesterday, and he was talking about the importance of faith, and for him, it was identity in Christ,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is to do with worthiness
Hmm.
and value. So what that means is he doesn't go from, or people with that faith, uh, they don't go from I'm a bad parent to I'm a bad person.
Hmm.
See
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't
Yeah.
they
Because
don't
they have,
generalize.
right, they have a sense of I was created for a purpose and I have a worth inherently to myself. So maybe I did really screw up as a parent today, but that does not mean that I have no value and may as well give up.
Yeah. So for me, we can look at, yeah, exactly. So we can look at the what this neuroanatomist says about the inner critic being in the a specific part of the left brain, and the fact that that
Hmm.
isn't true. And um,
Hmm.
uh, we can talk about attachment, and how we were raised, how our parents reacted to us,
Yeah.
our attachment styles, and all that. And the most salient point to me seems to be about our ability to cope, our ability to rise above,
Yeah.
our
A
ability,
resilience.
our resilience, yeah, our ability to see when the inner critic is running amok.
Yeah. Which happens to all of us sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what are the most, so that's just my take on it. What are the most important things that you see in terms of what's going on within uh, moms and dads who are on the edge of breakdown?
Yeah. Um, well, that's a great question. I think one of the things that is important to remember when we think about having that community, that healthy community around you, is not just I have somebody to give me a ride somewhere or I have somebody to baby. It's not just the physical support of having a community or close friendships. It is the relational reminders of truth. And so, one of the things that I think is a big deal when you are struggling with that inner critic and you are right at the edge of breakdown is you're receiving inside of yourself or maybe from voices outside such a strong message of shame. You have messed up. You are not a good parent. You may as well give up. And so, one of the things that strong friendships and relationships can do is remind you of the truth, like verbally tell you, no, you are loved, or I saw you do this great thing the other day, or even um, just a look of delight when you see your friend or give them a hug or whatever. It's these regular reminders um, that they are worthwhile and that there's truth beyond their shame. And so I think there can be such a strong shame message when you're right at the edge of disaster that you stop reaching out for help and you just start hiding more and more. So maybe you were already struggling a little bit with social isolation, but now things have gotten so hard and you're embarrassed about some of your decisions. And so you're just going to hide more and more and more. And so a lot of times when parents reach out to us saying, we have parents who call and say, and they know if I don't get some help, I might hurt my child. And we tell them, man, that is the bravest thing that you could do. Because that's such a hard thing to tell somebody you need help when you aren't sure if they'll help you yet. And so I think this commonality is you're feeling this desperation, but that desperation is coupled with shame. And so maybe what you feel like you need is money for your next meal, but what you really need is someone to remind you that you can do it, that you can be resilient, that they'll stand by your side and cheer you on while you keep
Yeah,
going. And I think that that inner voice, whether shame wins or not, can be a big indicator of whether or not you're going to be resilient or not.
yeah.
Does that
It
make
does,
sense?
yeah. And I'm thinking also, I'm seeing some parallels with the adoptee community here, right?
Yeah.
That there is a relief
Mm.
when we realize that other people have felt like we have.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's what can happen within the adoptee space is there's a relief around that. But if you're in a group that isn't mediated, like so if you're in a Facebook group, I'm talking about specifically,
Yeah.
but if you're in a group where there isn't a leader,
Hmm.
right, where there isn't a facilitator,
Hmm.
then that validation can become stuckness, right? Validation is a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right? So the first instinct is relief,
Hmm.
and but then the second thing implication might be stuckness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's not going to happen in a facilitated group where there
Yes.
is a leader, where there is somebody that has uh, gone before us on the path.
Hmm.
That's what we that's who we want to learn from, don't we? We want to learn from people that have been through the tough stuff and come out of it the other side,
Yeah.
and so that they can be about hope
Yeah. You
for
can have
us.
some hope. Like, man, if we have the same story and you turned out okay, maybe I could turn out okay too.
Yeah,
So
and
do you find there's a certain age as an adoptee where you really start wanting to talk to other adoptees and hear their stories?
um, is there a stage?
Yeah, like is
Yes,
it?
yeah. There is a stage. I believe.
Hmm.
So we call it coming out of the fog.
Okay.
So I'm talking here about babies that were adopted,
Hmm.
not kids that were adopted after neglect or abuse or that sort
Sure.
of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
talking
Definitely different.
about yeah, it's totally different. I'm talking about adoptees who can't remember
Hmm.
their relinquishment.
Yeah.
And me, I'm in that group,
Yeah.
right? So I because we can't remember it, we're we're kind of we're in the dark, we're in the fog. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
So what that to give you an indication of what that means,
Hmm.
I think of a we have we've got two dogs, and they are dogs 3 and 4. I think of our first dog and her crying for her mum on the
Mm-hmm.
first night that she was separated from her mum,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember whether I cried
Yeah.
at a week old or however old I was when I had my first night away from my birth mum. I can't remember that.
Yeah.
So because we can't remember it, we we're unclear, and it's pre-verbal. We don't have any words for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we don't have any memory of it. And as Carl Carl Jung was it? Jung said that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life,
Mm-hmm.
and we will call it fate. So I came out of the fog, as
Mm-hmm.
in I became aware of the trauma that I'd been unaware of before,
Mm-hmm.
around the teddy bear at 40.
Yeah.
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 So uh, when we come out of the fog is, I believe, the it is when we're looking for answers. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I rang. It wasn't quite there actually. It was a bit after that. But I remember, getting on the internet and finding a post adoption uh, uh, charity, and I rang them just before. I think I just rang them just before Christmas. So they pointed me in the direction of the book called of the Primal Wound, which I ordered, and that was that was my relief. Reading that was
Mm-hmm.
the validation, that was the relief.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was the double-edged sword, which is, I'm stuck with this.
Yeah.
And if I'd gone into those, if when that had happened, there had been adoption groups on Facebook, and I'd gone into one of those, then I can see that my my world would have got darker, because I would have
Yeah.
been more focused on I would be more focused on my trauma, but I wasn't in those spaces. Luckily, I didn't,
Yeah.
or those spaces didn't exist. So
Yeah.
I
So
was in it.
you didn't have that like unmonitored group of people maybe saying unhealthy things that made you
Indeed,
get stuck in
indeed,
ruminating.
indeed, and I discovered online groups that were Zoom calls
Mm-hmm.
rather than keyboard warriors.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
This wasn't adoption specific. This was emotional intelligence or consciousness, or it was focused on that area. It wasn't there weren't adoptee groups. They were
Yeah.
broader than that, and being part of those groups helped me see the the truth. So they gave me the relational reminders of truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of my prayers for my son. I, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it will be up to me at all when he's ready to process that or has some of coming out of the fog or however, whatever the right phrasing is for that. So I want to be someone in his life who's ready to talk to him about that anytime, always creating openness between us. But I also pray that he finds healthy friendships and people to reflect back to him their healing journey and reflect hope. And so those are some of the things that I really pray for him is similar to you. Um, having had some significant experiences, people and things that were said to you that then helped you process in a healthy way. That's
Yeah,
what I pray for him too.
yeah. So it's where they find. So we can find relational reminders of truth
Hmm.
in our family, in our
Hmm.
support, in
Hmm.
our support network,
Yeah.
at church, right? or it might be broader than that. So the idea that was popping into my head is Spence Chapin over. Sorry, I can't remember where you live, Melody. Which state do you live in?
I'm in Ohio.
You're in Ohio, okay. So there are Ohio adoption organisations, but the one that
Yeah.
popped into my head was Spence Chapin on in New York,
Okay.
and they have mentor they have young adoptee groups
Okay.
um, where they are where there is a mentor, an
Hmm.
older mentor, an older adoptee, an adult adoptee, and
Yeah.
they are those places are where we can go, where kids can go for help and relational reminders of truth.
Yeah.
Which I'm thinking is vital. As you
Yes.
said, I love that phrase. It's a matter of where do we find, yeah, where do we find
Yeah.
the relational reminders
Yes.
of
Yeah.
truth?
Yeah. And we
Where,
want to be intentional. And I think too, when we think, I love that you're talking about like you have this whole Thrive framework in the name of your podcast is Thriving Adoptees. And so much of the work I do is in family preservation, which is kind of we're standing right on the edge of the cliff. And how do we get away from the cliff, past sustaining, past surviving, and get up to thriving? But then I think I'm also passionate about how do those who are thriving go back to the cliff and help get some
yeah,
more people away from the edge because if you've gotten to the point of thriving, then you have a real story to tell to come alongside somebody who's maybe just at the edge of being preserved.
yes. Well, funnily enough, the E of thrive is empowering others.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
haven't gotten to hear the whole framework yet. I'm really
Okay.
excited about that
So that's
call.
cool. But we've got to do that. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I've mentioned this recently on the podcast listeners. I'm sure I've mentioned it to you, Melody, but my best friend died uh, 25 years ago in a car crash, and his wife was just 8 weeks pregnant, something like that.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was a terrible time for her. And
yeah.
she found a mentor, like
Hmm.
like somebody that had somebody who had been a young widow, another young widow.
Really?
Yeah. And the young widow had been through the tough stuff and was on the way out the other side, and she
Hmm.
she did it. She did the same.
Hmm.
So I believe Jake, after she'd been through it, she passed it on, and it's a bit like, I guess it's a bit like AA. We watch a lot of American cop shows and British cop shows, but one of the
Hmm.
differences between British cop shows and American cop shows is that there's more AA meetings in American cop shows. But they have a sponsor, don't they? So they have a
Yeah.
sponsor who has been sober for longer, who has been through breathed through the darkness, come out to the other life, and now helps others. And I think that is quite typical for people that have done that stuff.
Yeah.
That something happens that
Yeah.
makes us want to give back. And
Yeah.
was that your story? To what extent? What?
Um, no,
No.
I wish that was my story. I feel very admiring of those who have done that. Uh, my story is actually fairly different. I grew up in a pretty safe, healthy family. We weren't without our trials and struggles. We filed for bankruptcy when I was young and lived in my grandparents' basement for a while, and um, then lived in a house, a one-bedroom house. Our family of eight, because we had six kids and two parents, and my aunt and uncle and their daughter. So 11 of us in a one-bedroom house. So we weren't without our struggles, but we always had a support system. And so it kept us from getting close to that edge of the cliff that I was talking about. But when my husband and I got married, he also had come from a safe and whole family. and wasn't without his trials and struggles. His dad had cancer his whole life, passed away when he was 17. So we both had like trials in our life, but we had these buffers of relationship and community and overall felt like we had had happy, safe childhoods. And when we had our second kid, we just were sitting and talking one day about how it seemed like too much goodness for one family, that we had both been happy and safe as kids. And now here we were with two happy, safe kids. And that maybe there was something our family could do that would just bring one more at a time, one at a time, join into this kind of little fold of happy safety is the best way to put it. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds kind of cheesy, but we really just felt this sense on our heart that it was too much for just us. So in the same way that you could say you steward your money or you share your belongings with others, we felt like our family was something we could share. And so that kind of got us started on this journey of how do we bring one more at a time because there are so many. We actually sat on the couch last night together in tears, my husband and I, just talking about, man, how are our kids so blessed to know such safety and love, and there are so many kids who are not getting to experience. It doesn't seem fair. And so what is it that God would have us do to bring in one more at a time to that safety and that love. And so it really wasn't a story of hardship. Not that my life has been perfect or all easy, but there has been a through line of goodness that I wanted to offer to others.
Yeah. And the way it showed up was you ended up adopting your one of your son's friends, right? That's how it happened. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it showed up in a lot of ways. We used to work for an organization where we were house parents and had at-risk teenagers living with us, and then we started being host parents for this family preservation ministry that I lead now. But ultimately, it was when a story came into our life where a kid needed a family, it was like God had been preparing us all along to say yes to that. And so we gathered. Our son was 7 when we adopted him, and so our biological kids ranged from 7 to 15 at that time, the four of them. And we gathered everybody on our bed. We lived in a really small house. We didn't even have a living room with a couch yet.
hey,
And we do have a couch now.
good news.
Um, but we gathered all the kids on our bed and we asked them what they thought. And we said, this is not your decision to make. We don't want you to feel the weight of this decision, but it will affect you your whole lives. It will affect our family every day. And so we want to hear what you have to say about this adoption. And man, all of them said, um, yes, we can't wait. They shed some tears. My 15-year-old son shed some tears for his sorrow knowing the transition he was going to make. And my 13-year-old daughter said, "I not only do I think we can do this, I think it's going to make us a better family." And so it was like God had been putting all these pieces in the puzzle in place for all this time to prepare us to be his family. And then
Yeah.
he came along. We didn't even know that was going to happen. And so, yeah.
So as a mum and as an adoptive mum, what have been the biggest learnings for you, and what continue to be the biggest learning from you? You said your daughter felt that adopting would make you a better family. How has that played out? What is it that you've learned, do you think, that has helped you become better?
Yeah, that's a hard question because just like we were talking about the inner critic earlier, it's really easy to live your day-to-day life with your family and feel like you're messing everything up and just trying to keep your head above water. Um, I think I think one of the big things I've learned is that um, as a family, we're not going to get it perfect all the time, and it doesn't stop us from continuing to be a family and serve and grow together. And so we're learning through grace for each other, and we've seen our kids really be people who are quick to accept others in, quick to share their things, quick to Now, don't get me wrong, they are not perfect.
Yeah.
They make lots of mistakes every day. Um, but they care for others in a way that we could not have taught them to do. But because we lived our life in a certain way, they became people who wanted to live their life in that same way. Um, I think our son has also, our adoptive son has also taught us a lot about resilience and courage himself. I mean, for him to have the courage to love us and and choose us and um, connect to us, he could have very easily, because of his story, held us at arm's length and just tried to exist in safety. But man, he's fully opened his heart to us. And so there's this connection and attachment that is such a huge blessing. And I don't know if I could be as courageous and resilient as he is. And so I'm learning from him too. Um, and I think he's 11 now. And so maybe ask me this question again in 5 or 6 years, and I'll have 20 new things to tell you, right? We're learning all the time as parents and as people. Um, but it's so easy to look back and picture us saying yes over and over and over again and saying yes to another kid maybe someday. Like God has just used this piece of our life to enrich and expand our understanding of the world and what's going on in it and who we should be as people. And I very much look forward to what all five of my kids will do with their lives and how they'll go out and impact the world.
Yeah. Funny, you talked about courage to lovers. I was talking to somebody yesterday, was it yesterday, last week? And she was talking about her adoptive son saying, "I hate you,"
Mm,
and I'm like, um, that like
that would
how
be so
hard that
hard.
must be
Yeah.
to take. Um, so courage to love
Yeah.
against I hate you are two big bookends,
Yeah.
two opposite ends of the scale, right?
Yeah. I mean, that takes some courage too, to be feeling such a deep feeling as a child and to be able to be honest about it. And it takes a feeling of they're going to still love me even if I say this big emotion. And so there's probably is something that that parent is doing well to create such felt safety that that kid could say that. But yeah, obviously that would be a devastating thing to hear. And um, the prayer is that they would then be able to ride that emotional wave and come back to an understanding of safety and belonging.
Yeah. That was a long time ago, I think, for that particular birth parent. Sorry, that particular adoptive parent, and
Hmm.
they were bringing their son, back from a visit from the
Hmm.
birth mum. So it was
Hmm.
riding high off the back of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, you have to imagine that there's all kinds of complicated emotions coursing through them of, man, can I push this person away and say yes to this person? Or I'm angry. Who do I aim that at?
yeah,
And typically, I would say kids are willing to show their hardest emotions to the person they feel the safest with.
right.
Um, so even in that, there is some win that you've created a situation where they felt safe enough to say the big emotion that they were feeling instead of always feeling the need to just win your love and affection by trying to be this perfect buttoned up version of themselves.
Yeah. And it's trauma talking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When we worked for this organization that where we were house parents for at-risk teenagers, um, there was often these kids had been in like so many foster care placements that now they needed to be removed and put in a group home. One of the girls in our home had lived in 33 foster homes,
Wow.
and they would hit a point in time that was the longest they had lived anywhere, whether that was 5 months or 6 months or whatever. And it was like they would be doing really well up until that time, and then they would just start to self-sabotage. And so you said it's trauma talking. their body was keeping the score in a way that their mind necessarily wasn't even. Like their body recognized this is as long as I've ever been loved before, and I'm going to start sabotaging it because I no longer feel safe, which is hard to understand if you haven't walked a mile in their shoes. But the kids were able to push past that with and create a new feeling of felt safety to extend that period of time. Then they had a new level of understanding unconditional love. I can throw my worst at you and you'll still love me tomorrow. I can tell you I hate you. Um, and when I'm ready, you're going to hold me in your arms again.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to dive into that word self-sabotage, um, because to me, trauma talking feels, I only just come up with that word, right? And just like that idea that, but it is
Yeah.
trauma talking. So,
Yeah.
um, but uh, when we talk, when we use this word self-sabotage and we use
Mm-hmm.
this word, I'm getting in my own way,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they don't ring quite true to me.
Hmm.
Like, or which self are we talking about here? Like we're talking about um, the self that is in religious language, a child of God. That's not the self that we're talking about here. We're talking about the 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 the, the ego self, aren't we? The lowercase s
Mm-hmm.
self, and it all goes to identity to me. But
Hmm.
am I making any sense?
Yeah. Well, I would love to understand that more. I don't know that I have a deep thought or am coming from a strong place of learning when I think of self-sabotage, but would love to unpack that. I think what I saw was more of maybe self-sabotage is the wrong word. It was more of like I I no longer feel safe. I want to test the waters in a new way. It comes or
Yeah,
it ends up often sabotaging them, like hurting their place of safety they were in, especially for these kids who'd been in so many. I mean, they were in that many homes,
yeah.
partly partly because behaviors got really big at some point. And so, yeah, I would love to unpack more of what you're saying and how it doesn't ring
So
true.
if I shortened your what you just said there to
Mm-hmm.
kind of boundary testing,
Mm-hmm.
boundary testing or trauma talking,
Mm-hmm.
both of those would feel more truthful, more benevolent, more
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, just more true.
Yeah.
So when I think of sabotage, and I mentioned it, yeah, I think of getting in our own way, right? So we say that, don't we? I'm getting
Yeah.
in my own way,
Yeah.
right? Well, there's only one of you, right? There's only
Yeah.
one of us.
Yeah.
Self sabotage. How am I doing that to myself? Like like
Yeah.
how does that even work? Like we can't get in our own way. Getting in our own way it's like if I'm what you call the sidewalk, we called pavement, right?
Yeah.
I can't get in my own way while I'm walking down the pavement. You know,
Yeah.
I can't go one way and then do 180 degrees and come up against myself. It's not me that's getting in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a belief.
Mm-hmm.
It's a belief, and it's a belief that I can't.
Yeah.
And then we and how does that stack into what we're talking about? And how does that link back to what you're talking about? This this idea of which I think is gorgeous, right? Relational reminders of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of that, I think of somebody else seeing in us what we can't see ourselves.
Yeah. That's good.
That's what it's about, right? So you're talking about you got it. You can do this. No,
Yeah.
you don't believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in you. And then if we were bringing in a religious um, bent as well, angle as well. We say like God believes in you. God believes that you can do it, right? God
Yeah.
would have put you here. So and then that takes you back to faith, which you've
Hmm.
mentioned, and I think it's a really potent. It's a really potent thing on
Hmm.
any life journey.
Yeah.
So
I do like really like that reframing of that phrase, self-sabotage, which I think is easy to use carelessly. But the boundary testing, and even like safety testing, like, am I safe here and am I loved? And the interesting thing is that often when they would hit that, we've been here 5 months, we've never been loved or stable for more than 5 months. And so we're going to start testing all these boundaries. There were some times where everything in our house got broken or something pretty like aggressive or physical happened. Um, and when you got to the other side of that, like I was saying earlier, and you found out the next morning, I still have a home and I'm still loved and cared for, there was this super attached period of time that would happen then with those girls where um, it was like they needed to test all those boundaries to then form the new bond, and see like, oh, you're still here, man. Maybe I'm starting to love you too. And so that's really interesting when you think of that in that new phrasing of that you're giving me of boundary testing. Like, I'm going to test all the boundaries, and then I'm going to feel safe again.
yeah, it is. I hate you a boundary tester.
I think so. I'm not an expert, but
Yeah, well,
it feels to me like yeah, I'm gonna see, can I say this big thing that should break our bond, and then you're still there afterwards, after I've tested that boundary, then now I feel a new level of safety.
yeah. And I want to circle back to something that you said, which was also a kind of a reframe, to use your word, that it's kind of good that your son or daughter said that to you because they're feeling something,
Yeah.
and and, and they're
Yeah.
sharing something, even if it is pretty poisonous,
Hmm.
but they're not going away. They're saying what they're feeling.
Yeah, they told you. They're
They
not they're
told
not
you.
off saying it to everybody else. They told you. They felt safe enough to tell you. And I think that is a true in lots of humans, whether you have trauma or um, an adoption story. My one of my first jobs was running a daycare out of my house. My mom and I did it together. We were babysitting lots of kids, and the toddlers, the really little ones, it's like they would get dropped off and they might be sad when their parent left, but then they would be pretty cheerful all day. And then sometimes when their parents walked in at the end of the day, they would just burst into tears. And you can find reels of this on Instagram too, like daycare workers showing a kid bursting into tears when the parent walks in. It's like, well, why did they do that? It's because they had some type of buttoned up version of themselves for the daycare workers, where they were following the rules, and they feel. I think there is a level of safety and feeling loved and cared for at a daycare. But then when their parent walked in, that person they feel the most safe with, it's like, here come all my emotions about how I was feeling all day and why weren't you with me, and so that and you see it right at that toddler age where they maybe don't have enough as much control to go run into their parents' arms. Sometimes they did that, but a lot of times they would burst into tears. Like, just so you know, I'm really sad you were gone all day. I didn't feel like I could show anybody until my person I felt safest with walked in. And so there is something about even showing, unwanted behaviors, if you want to use that phrase, that shows like if you feel confident enough to show that behavior, that means you feel really safe right now.
Yeah. It's incredible, eh?
Hmm. It is incredible. Attachment, I think, attachment and belonging and, unconditional love, they are really incredible things to watch play out in humanity around us.
Yeah. What what about adoptive parents? Um, what about their inner critic?
Hmm.
What does it, like I was thinking about this morning. I hate you, and then
Mm-hmm.
what's the thought that goes, what are the options for the thought that comes to the adoptive parent's head? I maybe like I love you, but I don't really like you in the at this moment, or like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I think there can be, your inner critic might tell you a lie, like maybe you shouldn't be their parent if they hate you anyway. Um, or you're really messing this all up. Maybe somebody else could do a better job. Or a hopelessness of I'll never get this right. Um, I think that goes back some to what you shared about being in a group where people can remind you of truth. I need to hear sometimes from other adoptive parents or maybe even grown adoptees some of the things that you and I were just talking about. That maybe that's boundary testing, or maybe that is good. They're feeling safe enough to tell you that, or something to help fight against what my own narrative might be telling me. Man, you just aren't good enough to be their parent. They hate you. You need somebody to help you fight that in that moment, so that you can be resilient in going back and unconditionally loving them and continuing to create that safe space when they are testing those boundaries.
yeah. I guess those are the times where we need the friend that's going to be a critical friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not criticizing us.
Mm-hmm.
That they are saying that what we're thinking and what we're feeling isn't true.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, there's this,
A cheerleader.
yes. Yeah, we need a
To,
cheerleader. We need someone to remind us of truth, to come alongside us. Um, I hopefully this is not too controversial to say, but depending on a kid's story, it might not just be boundary testing. They might truly hate you in that moment because they just have had so many hard things happen. And I think we maybe have to ask ourselves as adoptive parents too, are we willing to love for as long as it takes, even if that love is not reciprocated the way we want it to be, as our kid is healing? I don't know. You can cut that out if you think it's too
no,
too
not at all.
controversial to say. I just think,
Not at all.
is it presumptuous to say every single kid will be able to love us the way we want to be loved in return? And are we loving them just to get that love in return, or are we loving them because they inherently deserve to be loved and they need to be loved, in order to thrive in this world? And maybe that will be reciprocated. I think that's why I say it was so brave and courageous of my son to love us, is because we can't assume that he will. He did, and praise the Lord that we are getting to experience his love. But he could have chosen to hold that at bay and stay in a wounded corner and hate us. And I hope there are some things we did that help him to love us. But I'm just saying I don't think we can assume, no matter our kid's story, that we will earn the same level of love back that we are pouring into them.
Yeah. Are we demanding too much too early?
Yeah, maybe. And every kid is different, I think. But I think if we have this idea in our head that if I love you, let's say we gave it a numerical score. I adopted this little boy. I love him at a level 100, and he's going to love me at a level 100. But what if he only loves me at a level 10? or can't love me at all at first. Like, am I going to keep loving him at a level 100? I think if we have that resolve, that desire, and people coming alongside to help us, then we can keep loving at a level 100, even when we have days where they say, I hate you. And even when the story isn't going quite how we want it to, we can be resilient in our parenting and our love because we're not doing it to get a level 100 back. We're doing it because we chose to, and it's the right thing to do. And God says that little boy deserves a level 100 love. And so I'm going to give him a level 100 love, even even when he has only 99 to give me, and even when he has only 4 to give me. That might be like a really dumb numbers illustration, but
No,
I,
not at all.
yeah.
I used to be like that with girlfriends.
How'd
I
that work out
used,
for you?
well, yeah, I don't think it did really with that mindset. I don't know. I used to think, oh well, she likes more than me than it wouldn't be it would liking rather than loving, but and it wouldn't be a 1 to 10. So
Yeah.
people often talk about oh she's a 10, right? So
Yeah.
that's the film. You probably can't remember. It might be before your time. But with Bo Derek and Dudley Moore, the film. There's a film called 10. This was a girl. She was a 10. No,
Okay.
before.
I mean, I've heard that phrase, but I haven't seen the film.
Okay. So so she's a 10, which is based purely on looks.
Yeah.
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 This wasn't. I wasn't doing. I wasn't doing this on looks. I was doing this like, well, who likes who who likes the other more than
Hmm. Yeah.
who? Yeah, I like her as my liking for her is 4 out of 10, but
Yeah.
she's a 6 out of 10 for me, right? So she's
Yeah.
keener on me than I'm on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
It's definitely different, I think, with romantic dating relationships than a child that you've chosen to be parent of.
yeah. I was thinking of saving that uh, strange anecdote until after we'd hit the end of the record button, but I
I
just
think people
blurted
will
it out.
enjoy it.
I just I just blurted it out. I what one thing does come to mind was the kind of the lack of logic for love.
Yeah.
So I so I've been with my wife for 32 years now. We've been married for 27 of those. And I remember just after we kind of got together, I was driving along and I remember where it was. And this question came into my head, which was, why do I love Lynn? And the best I could come up with was she does what she says she's going to do. There is no logic. There is no
Yeah.
logic.
Yeah, I love that
There,
phrase.
there's
There's no
no
logic in
logic to
love.
love.
Yeah. I think too, and to go back to my whole number analogy, for my son or for our kids, depending on their story, it might take them a lot more effort to love at a level 10 than it takes me to love at a level 100 even. Because maybe I have been safe and loved my whole life and they've experienced rejection or harm in some way in that area. Um, so they might be putting in a level 100 effort to loving me, but it only comes across as a level 10 because that is so much effort for them. And so there, again, back to that first comment, there is this courageous thing that my son did to love me. Um, and I think that's another reason why we need people around us to remind us, or people who understand that, to remind us, man, he's working so hard and we got to celebrate that 10 that he's coming at us with, even if it's not the 100 that we want.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hmm.
Is there anything that you'd like to share that I've not asked you about, Melody?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm bad at thinking of things like that, though, because I'm usually just caught up in the conversation. I will tell you that you almost made me cry several times. I don't think I've ever really unpacked some of the effort and the courage. um, that he is using every day. And that a lot of um, kids who've been through traumatic things use every day just to exist in the world around them and to love and be loved in return. And so I think I'll be ruminating on that all day. Thanks for letting me talk about it.
Yeah. Can, can I give you an opinion on that, on the trying
Yeah.
hard?
Yeah.
I'll go with an esoteric one first, and if it doesn't make any sense, I'll try and unpack it a little bit more, right?
Okay.
Uh, so a lot of us are looking for enlightenment when trauma has endarkened us.
Hmm.
So I think that trauma histories are like clouds, clouds obscuring the sky. And it's an ob it's an obscurance. It's some the history obscures it. It's not that he is love. We are
Hmm.
love, and trauma obscures us like the clouds obscure the sky.
Hmm.
It's not a trying thing. It's a seeing thing.
Hmm.
I can't do any better than that.
I love that.
Not on. Oh, you love that.
Hmm. I think that's helpful context for me.
Well, that's good because I didn't think it was particular. I didn't think it was particularly good. Right, listeners, we're going to finish it there. We can't have too much of this stuff going on. Thank you, Melody, and thank you, listeners. Thank you for staying with us to the end, and we'll
Yeah.
speak to you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks.